Critics of modern times often say that we live in an era of fakes and surrogates, that today it is more important for people not to be but to seem, that the modern world is a world of Instagram filters and templates. Women in pursuit of beauty standards have lost all individuality. We see the same lips, the same noses, the same figures, the same makeup. But the legendary beauties of the past were different. They had never known the plastic surgeon's knife. Their beauty was natural. Even today, they would outshine any supermodel. In this new episode, we will talk about the standards of female beauty throughout different eras. You will find out how the oldest known beauty can be associated with Ukraine, why medieval women wore pads on their stomachs, and why Italians poured sour milk on their hair. Let's start with the Paleolithic period. The Venus of Willendorf is considered one of the first preserved female images in history. It is 30,000 years old. Was it a portrait of a real woman or an idolized dream? We don't know the sculptor, but we can admire the luxurious breasts and other forms. The ancient artist clearly believed that there should be plenty of a beautiful woman. By the way, in 2022, an article was published by Austrian and German scientists who studied the limestone from which the statuette was made. They concluded that it was most likely mined in northern Italy, but the second most probable location is the vicinity of Isium, Kharkiv region. In ancient Egypt, a slender, tall girl with long legs, small high breasts, a long neck, and narrow hips was considered beautiful. She wore a wig made of thick, shiny black hair and actively used cosmetics. Nefertiti, the chief wife of Pharaoh Akhenaten, was very fortunate. Her bust miraculously survived, and 3,500 years later, people still admire her long neck, high cheekbones, large eyes, and mysterious half-smile. The ideals of beauty in ancient Rome and ancient Greece were generally similar. Light skin, often achieved with lead-based whitening products, blonde hair and blue eyes. Wide hips and small, high-set breasts were desirable. The Greeks considered the Athenian Hetera Phryne to be the pinnacle of beauty. She was the model chosen by the sculptor Praxiteles for his famous statue of Aphrodite of Knidos. In medieval Europe, the Christian church taught believers that the body was a vessel of sin. Perhaps that is why fragile, delicate girls were considered attractive. Large breasts, if they existed, were carefully concealed. An important feature of medieval beauty was pale, clear skin and fair hair, though it was usually hidden beneath a headdress. A high forehead was also valued, so much so that women would shave their hairline and remove their eyebrows to achieve the look. A rather strange element of medieval beauty was the appearance of a pregnant belly. Some women even used special pads to imitate it. If you were to compile a ranking of medieval beauties, the mistress of the French King Charles VII, Agnes Sorel, would surely be on the list. The Renaissance marked the end of medieval modesty. The cult of femininity flourished, celebrating beauty in all its glory. Women of the Renaissance were not supposed to be thin. No bones should protrude from the chest. Perfect breasts should rise smoothly, imperceptibly to the eye, wrote 15th century author Agnolo Firenzuola in his treatise on female beauty. Golden hair was considered an attribute of true beauty, as seen in the paintings of Sandro Botticelli. To achieve the desired shade, Italian brunettes smeared their hair with lemon juice or sour milk and sat under the scorching sun, waiting for their hair to lighten. Speaking of Botticelli, the model for masterpieces like The Birth of Venus, Primavera, and Pallas and the Centaur was the famous beauty Simonetta Vespucci, the mistress of Giuliano de' Medici. The Renaissance was followed by the Baroque era, and previous beauty standards quickly fell out of fashion. Naturalness was no longer in vogue. Instead, theatricality took over. The ideal woman was a proud, elaborately dressed lady with a grandiose hairstyle and an abundance of jewelry. Just look at the fashion icon and mistress of Louis XIV, Angélique de Fontanges. In the Rococo era, beauty was synonymous with eternal youth. Style icons like the Marquise de Pompadour and Queen Marie Antoinette mastered this look. A Rococo woman was glamorous in the best sense of the word. Her beauty was extravagant. She resembled a porcelain doll. The more childlike her face appeared, the better. She wore careful makeup, powdered hair, and had delicate hands and feet, a tiny waist, and fragile shoulders. She was playful, graceful, and delightfully capricious. The Empire style brought another wave of admiration for antiquity, leading to the so-called naked fashion, which critics mockingly called the fashion of savages. Women wore lightweight dresses made of transparent muslin or gauze, sometimes even forgoing a petticoat. Before a ball, a fashionista would dampen her dress with water so that the fabric clung to her body like the drapery of ancient Greek statues. Unsurprisingly, many young women caught deadly colds at winter balls. The Victorian era presented two opposing ideals of femininity. On one hand, the virtuous, rosy-cheeked angel of the house. On the other, the tragic, pale, and fragile beauty, exhausted by life, like Marie Duplessis, the Parisian courtesan who inspired the Lady of the Camellias. To achieve the Victorian beauty ideal, women resorted to dangerous methods, drinking vinegar, sucking on lead pencils, and even using belladonna drops to dilate their pupils. A Victorian lady's outfit resembled a birdcage. A crinoline, corset, petticoats, stockings, a jacket, a cape, and a flower-adorned hat. The entire ensemble could weigh up to 17 kilograms. Illustrator Charles Gibson published many pictures of beautiful young women in magazines in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, and the so-called Gibson girl became a new image that millions of women in America and Europe tried to approach. She had a graceful neck and lush hair in a high hairstyle. Her large eyes and hourglass figure were clearly achieved thanks to a tightly tightened corset. Gibson portrayed his women as very self-confident. Sometimes they even dominated men. One of the models was Lady Nancy Astor, the sister of the artist's wife, and in the future the first woman member of the lower house of the British Parliament. The 1920s saw the rise of the flapper, bold, emancipated women who wore short hair, painted their lips into dramatic heart shapes, and laughed loudly. Silent film star Louise Brooks popularized the short bob, which became an iconic look of the era. It seemed incredibly attractive to both men and women of the Roaring Twenties. For the first time in several centuries, ladies refused to wear corsets. Owners of large breasts tried to flatten them, and in fashionable dresses with a low waist, the figure became boyish without embarrassing curves. Tanning in sports, such as tennis, swimming, and golf, became fashionable, and floor scales first appeared in stores. The 1930s to 50s marked Hollywood's golden age, with stars like Jean Harlow, Joan Crawford, Marilyn Monroe, and Elizabeth Taylor setting beauty standards. The curvaceous hourglass figure became the ultimate ideal, often enhanced by corsetry and makeup. In the 1930s to 40s, broad shoulders and bright red lips became fashionable. Cinema and art reflected the era's beauty ideals, including pin-up images of seductive women. Among the stars of this style were blonde Betty Grable and brunette Betty Page. The 1960s to 70s popularized a fragile teenage look. Miniskirts, bikinis, and hippie-style beaded bracelets were in vogue. One of the era's icons was British model Twiggy, whose ultra-thin figure led to trends like anorexia nervosa, Twiggy syndrome, and Barbie syndrome. By the 1980s to 90s, beauty standards shifted to tall, tan supermodels with toned bodies. Fitness culture boomed, with Cindy Crawford and Claudia Schiffer releasing hit workout videos. The 1990s brought an entirely different beauty trend, a thin, somewhat frail appearance with dark circles under the eyes. This controversial aesthetic was epitomized by supermodel Kate Moss. And what can we say about today's beauty standards? Of course, we can list parameters such as an hourglass figure and recall the names of models like Bella Hadid. But still, the main idea of modernity is inclusiveness and tolerance. To be considered attractive, a woman can have any body type. Rigid norms are condemned. Model scouts look for girls with a unique charm for magazine covers. Beauties today also include plus-size models like Tess Holliday, women with pigmentation disorders such as vitiligo, and even 88-year-old Carmen De La Refus. The main thing is to have individuality. In advertising campaigns, models with prostheses, such as Lauren Wasser, and transgender models like Valentina Sampaio are invited. Each of them proudly carries their own story. And who would you call the greatest beauty of all time? Tell us in the comments. If this video gets 20,000 likes, we will also talk about the history of male beauty. Red lipstick is a well-known accessory, but few people think about the fact that it is a whole cultural phenomenon with its own history. This history includes not only Hollywood beauties, but also the British Queen, suffragettes at protests, and women who had just been released from Nazi concentration camps. American journalist Rachel Felder explores all this in her book, Red Lipstick, An Ode to Beauty. 2.